Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. How are we doing today? This is going to be a slightly different show than the one we normally have. I'm going to do something a little bit more fluid and a little bit more discussion based on what we've got normally. Because what we normally do, we turn up every week on a Wednesday, and we're going through MCQs for the SQE. So the primary idea is to help people prepare for SQE1. And of course, in order to prepare for SQE1 effectively, you need to do like a truckload of MCQs. So what I thought I will do this term is meet you guys once a week and go through the SRA samples, because the SRA is publishing a lot of MCQs to give us an idea of what the MCQs are like for SQ1. And I thought if we are getting together to do that and explain why the correct answers are correct and why the wrong answers are wrong from these SRA published samples, then we're getting ahead in our preparation. But this week, I wasn't available on Wednesday. So I thought, what am I going to do to keep in touch with you guys and at the same time kind of keep the day job? So I thought on the weeks that I'm not available for our normal Wednesday slot, because remember, our SQE MCQ sessions are going to be Wednesdays at 1 p.m. When I'm not available on a Wednesday, then I will pick another day in the week and run a live session with a slightly more fluid program and more fluid objectives. So hopefully, as more people are joining into the stream, then we can engage into a discussion together about your preparation for the SQE. You can tell me where you're at, how you feel about it, the sort of progress that we're having, and so on. So that way we can have our kind of weekly catch up and hangout. Some weeks we do our normal MCQ prep. Some weeks we just kind of sit here and kind of chat with each other and see how we're getting on. So hopefully this is a good idea for everybody. If you guys do think this is a good idea, give us the thumbs up right there. Or put a message in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this on the replay, so I know that I'm giving the community something that is interesting. Yeah. So today we are having our coffee, because you see 1 o'clock is a good time for a coffee break. We're going to have our coffee and to have a chat. And by the way, this is my favorite mug that I got from San Francisco. If you happen to be there, they've got this wonderful kind of sourdough bread place that's got like a few shops around there that you can get some really nice bread. If you're not in San Francisco and you're in London, you can also get some nice bread in places. Right. What I wanted to start off with to get us warmed up, I wanted to sort of visualize your journey in preparing for the SQE as having 3 distinct stages. So I thought we can present this as the sort of 3 stages of SQE prep. And then we can try and position ourselves along that journey to see how far we are and to see what's coming forward. So these 3 stages are effectively the very beginning, when you're thinking, should I be doing this exam? What does it mean? Why do I want to do it? And so on. And I'll go through it in a bit of detail in a moment. The second stage is, I've decided I'm doing this, so I'm going to prepare for this. And now the challenge becomes, how do I best prepare for this? And the last stage is, I have passed SQE1 and now I'm kind of full on progressing for SQE2, and how am I going to manage to succeed in that one? So this is what I sort of visualized as a 3-part journey in going through our SQE process. So the 3 stages of SQE prep. You guys like this as an idea? We've got a lot of people who joined in the stream just now that are watching us live. If you think this is a useful visualization, let me know. If you like this, I can even put some infographics together and so on to kind of illustrate this a little bit further. So let's start with stage 1. Yes, you are thinking you want to become a solicitor. Now, this is great stuff. I met on the day job, I met first year undergraduate students that are joining the law school for the first time, and they're all kind of very excited and they're very happy to be at uni, but of course none of them knows anything really about what's going on. There are a few that have been qualified overseas and they're coming here for a second degree, but the vast majority of people really have got no clue what's happening. So you're asking them, what is it that you want to do? Where do you see yourselves progressing? And what do you think it's going to be like post graduation? And the vast majority of them say, I want to become a lawyer. And some of them know about the distinction between solicitors and barristers in this jurisdiction. Some of them do not. So then we have the opportunity to talk to them about this. Now, doing a law degree is fine, okay? And a lot of people can get valuable skills and they get things that are really, really useful and used by the market, and they get nice jobs. But having a law degree and becoming a solicitor are two quite distinct things. Now, I've touched upon this in previous conversations that we had together. Do we have anybody in the room at the moment that is actually working in the broader legal domain happily? And they're thinking, why should I put myself through this ordeal? Why should I study for the SQE? Why should I incur this cost and all this hassle? If I'm already working in legal services, broadly defined, then what is the extra advantage? And I'm having this discussion with a lot of our graduates, a lot of our postgraduate students, a lot of friends and colleagues from around the place. The great advantage of this jurisdiction is that legal services are very liberal and very liberalized, meaning that you can offer support in legal issues without being officially a lawyer, without being registered as a solicitor, without being registered as a barrister. So the broad domain of legal services accommodates the vast majority of what we call non-contentious work. Most of it is business, contract, commercial related. So I'm guessing a lot of you that are with us in the room right now are thinking that if I'm working in a support role inside a business, right? I'm their contracts manager, or I'm their in-house legal advisor, or whatever term they use to describe these things these days. Or even I'm working in a support role in a law firm as a paralegal or as a secretary. Why do I need to go the extra step and actually qualify as a solicitor? At the initial levels of your engagement in this type of work, you will probably not see much difference. Quite a lot of you are already qualified overseas, right? So you have your home title and you can work here as a registered foreign lawyer, which is one of the things that the SRA is offering. It's not really meaningful, but it just kind of gives you something to put on your CV, I guess. And you already know what it is like to go through the practice requirements in a different jurisdiction, and now you're doing it here. So at the beginning of your career, and if you're relatively young, you will probably not see much difference. So the roles that you're going to be after, the vast majority of them in-house roles that have to do with helping people with their contracts, helping people with negotiating their agreements, then making sure that these agreements are respected and performed properly, even helping other types of other services within the business, like human resources, procurement, and all of that stuff. You will be able to do this quite effectively without qualification. But you're what? You're in your what? Late 20s, early 30s. So we have a poll in here. Do you wanna admit how old you are? Yes. If you're happy to admit how old you are, feel free to put it in the chat. Yeah, I will not judge you. So if you are late 20s, early 30s, you will probably not see a great deal of difference. The problem comes when you attain a level of seniority that you're beginning to make proper money. What I've noticed from discussions with people in the profession, with the law firms, with people who are working in-house, friends, colleagues, people that I meet online, Reddit groups, and all the rest of it, I've understood this. There is a price ceiling to your evolution in legal services, and you will hit a top. After that level, you will not be able to progress in terms of pay unless you go for your qualification. So unless you hold up your practicing certificate as a solicitor, as a badge of honor, they will refuse to pay you an additional amount of money. Where does this top up? You're going to top up probably below £100,000 a year. I've seen people in in-house roles that are comfortably making 60, 70,000 pounds a year, especially if they're in an in-house capacity in a smaller business. If we're talking bigger corporations, they usually get into the 80s, 90s, sometimes they get close to 100. But there seems to be this psychological barrier or this understanding of what is a market rate within businesses that has you pegged at that level so long as you're not qualified as a solicitor. And clearly, one would hope to make more than £100,000 a year. I mean, I know that if you're a recent graduate or if you're currently a student, this sounds like a great deal of money, but trust me, it is not. Because one day you would like to take a trip to San Francisco and try that sourdough for yourself, right? So then you need income to spend on those tickets. Even though the US is now currently on sale because nobody wants to go there, but that's a problem that we'll deal with another day. In order for you to breach that salary bracket and to be paid above the £100,000, you will need your practicing certificate. Will your life be any different? Will they give you different things to do? No, they won't. You will probably do exactly the same stuff when you're in your mid to late 40s as the stuff that you did pretty much in your early 30s. You will now, though, be called legal counsel or senior legal counsel or head of legal or something like this. You will never come across any contentious work, because what is defined by the SRA as contentious work or something that you need a practicing certificate for has reduced so much that unless you're a litigator, really, there isn't much of that you're going to come across on a daily normal basis. But in order to convince human resources, in order to convince management to pay you 120, 130, 150, 160, 180, 200,000 pounds a year, you'll need to dangle the practicing certificate for them. Is that a fair thing? I don't know, guys. But at the end of the day, we can debate the sort of ethics and appropriateness of it. It doesn't change the reality of the matter. This is what I've observed in the market. Now, if you disagree with me, please feel free to kind of tell me in the chat so we can have a debate about this. But I really think that this is a problem that people hit later in life. It is something that's rather difficult to explain to undergraduate law students or recent graduates because they don't really project themselves 20 years down the line and what their career might be. But for those of us that are a little bit older, this is the reality that we have encountered. So making the investment in it sounds like I'm selling you the SQE now, right? But what I'm trying to say is that making the investment in passing the SQE and qualifying and getting that practicing certificate is something that is going to pay off in the future. Now, you could tell me, I could even go work in a law firm. Go for it, okay? If you don't mind the rather unpleasant environment and pressured environment that they've got in law firms, go for it, because a newly qualified lawyer is already going to breach the £100,000 a year. And if you're like 3, 4, 5 years post-qualification experience, then you can easily hit 200, 250. So if you're after the money and you can handle and stomach the lifestyle that goes with like high pressured environments in law firms, then you accelerate very quickly. But clearly, if your aspiration is to join a law firm, then you need to get yourselves that practicing certificate. Right, so let's kind of loop back to where we started. We started with number 1 in our 3 stages of SQE prep. And we are now at the first level thinking, is this something for me? And is this something that I would want to do? So I have explained, at least in terms of money terms, why this might pay off in the future and why this might be something that you might want to do to ensure that you breach those salary brackets and these salary barriers as you're getting older. Now, that could be one reason why you want to do it. The second reason could be that you really want to work in areas of the law that are contentious. You really want to be a litigator, you want to do criminal, you want to do aspects of family law. So then you really have got no choice other than to qualify. Now, the question that comes up after that initial thought process like, do I want to do it and why do I want to do it? The question becomes, how do I do it? And what is it that exactly I need to do? Most of you probably already know this. You need to pass through SQE1, and then you need to pass through SQE2, and then you need to demonstrate that you have engaged in what they call qualifying work experience. So once you've passed these two major sets of exams, and then you have your qualifying work experience to show that you have engagement in the real practice and performance of legal services, then you can obtain your practicing certificate, along, of course, with satisfying the SRA as to ethics and behavior and some stuff like that. What you need to do, therefore, or what you need to know about when you're first starting out thinking about the SQE, you need to be able to satisfy the examiners in these two major exams. And in order to arm yourselves to be able to do this, you will need time to attain the knowledge. You will need funds in order to pay for those exams that are pretty expensive, and potentially funds to help you along with your preparation. Which brings us, I think, quite nicely to the second stage in the 3 stages of SQE prep, which is actually doing it. You've convinced yourselves that you want to become a solicitor. You've convinced yourselves that you want to get that practicing certificate, and you know how it's going to be beneficial for your aspirations and what you want to do in your lives. And you're now familiar with the structure and requirements for this exam. You need to have a degree from a higher education institution, either from here or from a foreign jurisdiction. It does not need to be a law degree, right? So don't worry whether the label is an LLB or something else. We're not worried about this anymore. But you need to then pass these two exams, SQE1 and SQE2. If you're at this second stage in your 3 stages of prep for qualification, you need to sit down and think very carefully, how are you actually going to prepare for this? And here we've got divergent options. Are you currently at uni? Are you studying for a law degree? If you are studying for a law degree, maybe, watch this because this is important. Maybe you're covering the content or some of the content that you need to be able to pass SQE1. This should not be taken for granted, however. There's a variety of reasons for this. And I don't think this is clearly explained to the people who are currently registering for a law degree. The law degree used to be quite distinct from what you need to know in order to qualify as a solicitor. That's why we used to have the law degree that was a qualifying law degree. They called it the LLB, which was then followed by the LPC, which was the legal practice course, the vocational part of your training, where you learned all the things about procedures and how you operate in courts and civil procedure and criminal procedure and all the kind of nasty stuff like conveyancing, inheritance, all of that we normally do not cover in the law degree. Since they introduced the SQE and they kind of put out to pasture the LPC, yes, now some of that stuff may have filtered down to the content of your traditional law degree. And I'm saying may because the vast majority of institutions, because they're funded by people who do teaching as, let's say, a side activity. And yes, this is a criticism of my colleagues. So if anybody is watching this stream that works with me, I'm talking about you, okay? A lot of my colleagues, they're in law school because they are researchers in law, not teachers of law. So what they're interested in is other things. And what they deliver in terms of teaching tends to be the stuff that excites them, that is usually linked to their research. The vast majority of people do not research the practice of the law. Therefore, we have a disconnect between a student population who aspires to qualification and they need to know the law, and the bunch of the greater bunch of the teachers who are there to do different things and then have to kind of on the side do a little bit of teaching. The vast majority of law schools, therefore, currently in the UK, have not adapted their teaching program to the requirements of the SQE. What they have done instead, they've either tacked on an extra year. So they're offering you like an undergraduate and postgraduate package. And it's the postgraduate bit, the extra year, that's going to cover your SQE prep. Or they're telling you go to a separate external provider. So a lot of institutions have got collaborations with online providers like Barbary and so on, that they're sending people out for their SQE prep. So if you go to places like the LSE, for instance, they're going to tell you, we're not going to do SQE prep here, but we've got like a discount code. And after you're finished, you can go on to do it with Barbary, which is kind of weird as a marketing proposition. On the other hand, I don't think the LSE has got any problem with recruitment, but you know what I mean. So how are you going to prep if you're currently doing a law degree and your law degree doesn't fully cover the content of what we call the FLK, which is the functioning legal content, doesn't cover that you need for SQE prep. Moreover, if you're a graduate, depending how recent you are, actually it gets worse if you're a recent graduate, but you probably have not covered what you need to understand and perform in these exams simply because you've got a law degree. So the people who are currently doing it, they've got a problem. The people who've done it already have a problem. So the question, how do I prep for this exam, is not answered by saying, I already have a law degree or I am currently studying for a law degree. You still need additional prep. Question, how are you going to get this additional prep? Two avenues. You can try and prep by yourself. So you can self-prep for the SQE, or you can sign on to somebody else, an institution that provides tuition or support or various things in between to help you prepare. Now, I've spent a lot of time on this channel discussing the idea of preparing alone. I think it is possible, but it is difficult. Perhaps you're already preparing alone, and that's the reason why you're spending like your coffee break with me on this channel, because this whole channel is devoted to helping people who are trying to prepare by themselves for the SQE, and I'm trying to offer a resource that is cost effective, actually free, for people to engage in that preparation. Could you prep by watching my YouTube videos? They can get you on your way, but I will not pretend that they are an adequate resource for your preparation. You need to do a great deal of study on the side by yourself. And remember, we are now on the second stage out of our 3 stages of SQE prep, and this is the SQE 1 part. So you decided that you want to do it, you've got your reasons. Now you're thinking, how do I prep for it? But the first hurdle you need to overcome is SQE1. So if you find value in what I've got in the channel, and I've made an effort to cover all parts of the FLK, so I've got a video that covers the syllabus, both for FLK1 and FLK2. So in totality, all my videos together offer you either a good introduction to all of this, or they're offering you a chance for a revision for the entirety of the FLK. And if you like that stuff and you enjoy it, give us the thumbs up so the video spreads to more people. And if you really enjoy it, you can even press the little thing that looks like a dollar sign there and send me some money so I can buy myself another coffee. Yes. If you totally enjoy it, you can either join the channel as a paid member, and for less than the price of a coffee, for $2.99 per month, you can actually get early access to all the content and a bunch of other freebies. So you can either watch everything for free or wait till it becomes available for free, or you can join that and accelerate your process and your progress for less than the price of a coffee. But in addition, you need to do some reading. This is not simply an audiovisual experience, right? And I don't, to be honest, this is a bit of a generational thing. Maybe you can manage by watching kind of nice videos or podcasts and stuff, and it all stays in your head. But I'm of a generation that I also need to have a book to work from, especially if I'm revising for an exam. Now, which book should you get? It's funny that there are so many people desperate for this information, but there isn't a great deal of quality resource. My recommendation are the titles from Revise SQE. Not only because they're sponsors of this channel and I've made some videos for them and I also know them and they're really nice people, but that's not the reason. The key reason is that they are the best titles in the market. So if you're looking for something to bring you up to speed in association with using other resources, like for instance, watching these videos, I think the Revised SQE books are pretty much the only offering we've got that covers the totality of what you need for the FLK, and then they've got extra books for MCQs and so on and some practice, and it's not overwhelming because nobody really has the time to go through the normal textbooks. When I first started dealing with this stuff and I had to help colleagues with this, I thought, okay, I'll do what I do, right? I'll go out and get you like a bunch of textbooks. And I ordered all the textbooks to cover all the FLK. And then we filled up a room with textbooks. So we basically had like all these kind of chunky titles. I mean, if you've done a law degree, you probably remember some of them are like huge, right? So we ended up with like a table up to the ceiling full with massive textbooks, at which point we realized this is not going to work, is it? I mean, it's not possible that you traverse massive traditional undergraduate law textbooks in order to extract the information that you need that is relevant for the FLK in order to be able to prepare yourself for MCQs. So you need something different. You need something more contained. So from the few commercially available options, the more contained ones and the best ones are the Revised SQE titles. Now, some people get the books that are printed by the College of Law. It's called like the University of Law. These are either the titles that they were offering in the past for their LPC, slightly revamped, or some specific SQE-related content. These are also good. The problem is they're extremely expensive. So in order to get the whole pack, it's going to set you back like £500 or so. I mean, I don't know what the exact pricing now, but it used to be horrifically expensive. The Revised SQE titles are about like £15 each, okay? Now, Oxford University Press has a horrible offering. I've told you this. If you're from OUP and you're watching this, remember, I told you this directly, right? And I've got no problem sharing it with people. Their package is very thorough, very good quality, but it is enormous, absolutely enormous, and the user interface that you all access it online is not available in print. The user interface is horrific. So it's going to take you ages to navigate their platform to find the things that you want to find, and then you're just gonna die of old age before you read to the bottom of all their guidebooks. So yes, they're offering something. It costs a fortune. Again, I think it costs like £450 for the package, but it is not a sufficient tool for your prep. You need something different. You need something smaller, more manageable. Some of the publishers, some of the others, are starting to come up with sort of SQE relevant titles. The problem is nobody is doing it fast enough, and nobody is doing it in a complete enough fashion. So yeah, I mean, there is a new Revised SQE series, I think from Routledge, but okay, what's the point of buying like half the title, half the FLK, and then you have to work out the rest of the half by yourself? Yeah, if you want like a complete resource, there, either you get the University of Law / College of Law titles that are very expensive as a package if you're getting them outside the prep, or you get the horrifically expensive and horrifically burdensome OUP package, or you get the Revised SQE titles that are way more manageable, but of course you need to do some extra work. Yeah, I've got videos explaining this in detail about how you can self-study, whether you should self-study, what are the challenges that you're going to address, and so on. But the overall idea is, if you are already working in the legal domain, so you're already working in some sort of in-house capacity in a legal team, or you're a paralegal in a law firm, or you've got engagement with the practice of the law, or you're a foreign qualified lawyer that has gone through these exams back home and you've been working here for a while. Yes, in that case, if you meet that profile, it is possible for you to adequately prepare for SQE1 by yourself. Yeah. Now, if you belong in every other category, you're in trouble. If you're a recent law graduate, you're in trouble. If you don't have a law degree, you're in even worse trouble. If you haven't been engaged in the practice of the law, or you haven't been working in the legal domain for a very long time, you're also in trouble. If you're a foreign qualified lawyer that hasn't yet been in this jurisdiction, but you're seeking from overseas to kind of take this exam because you think it's going to be great for your CV, again, you're in trouble. So if you belong in these latter categories, right, limited engagement with the law, limited engagement with the actual practice of the law, and not a relevant, recent, bang on topic degree, then you need some additional support. This is where things get funky, because the SRA has done a horrible job in not regulating the domain of prep providers. So even though universities are hounded by the government on what they offer and how they offer it, and all these kind of discussions about quality and this and that and the other thing, the solicitor prep space for the SQE is a complete jungle. So anybody can come up, pretend that they are offering SQE prep, set up something, set up a website, and start selling stuff. And that's why the vast majority of online SQE prep providers are garbage. And I went through a phase where I was putting in the community posts on the YouTube channel evaluations and reviews of the various online offerings for the SQE. And the vast majority of them are just terrible, fake. There's a great deal of fraud. And I'll give you this as an easy example. You're thinking, oh, I saw on Instagram that somebody is offering kind of MCQs or notes for the SQE, but they're not very expensive, maybe I should go for it. When you go to the website and you cannot find then the person who's behind it, the people are not named, when you cannot find the corporate that's behind it, when you click on the about page or the privacy page and you cannot find corporate information, you cannot find an address. There is one lately that I checked that their address was 123 Low Street, London. I mean, are you taking the piss or what? This is just offensive, if anything else. So there are all these fancy websites that pretend to offer SQE prep that are complete scams. And people are falling for it because people are desperate. So if you're currently watching this live, I hope, tell me if you fell for any of these people, and make sure you tell your friends about this. Tell everybody to watch this part of the live stream when I'm calling out all the scammers, right? Because this is a very serious problem. This stuff is expensive. People are desperate for support. I've got a Facebook group that's got like 4,500 people on it. You know what all the discussions are about? All the discussions are only about getting access to resources. There are people trying to sell books to each other, trying to sell notes to each other, trying to sell kind of ripped PDFs of the books from the prep schools and all the rest of it. Why are people doing this? Because the whole thing is so stressful and so costly, they will do whatever they can to get the support that they need. And there are all these despicable scammers out there that are taking advantage of this. So fancy website, guys, means nothing, okay? If you cannot find the names of the people who have designed this resource, and if you cannot find adequate, real reviews of them, and if they don't identify themselves or the corporate behind them, that don't have an address, that don't have like a proper email contact and all of that, don't do it. It's a scam. You're gonna get a PDF that is a bunch of garbage. It's either going to be stolen stuff from somebody else, or it's going to be ChatGPT written stuff and kind of packaged as a booklet and sent to you, and you've paid 50 quid, 100 quid for absolutely nothing. Yeah. But the reason why these things are there is because they actually sell. And you're thinking, if I've got this garbage together, I scam like 20 people, then I made a few £100, then I'm good, and I move on to the next scam. The legit prep schools are there, but they're expensive. And you need to have a very serious discussion with yourself as to the level of support that you need. What is it you're after? Are you after curated audiovisual material, a bunch of print resources, or access to guidebooks or textbooks, and then access to banks of MCQs? Is that what is going to support you for your prep? If that's the case, there are quite a few legitimate online prep providers that are offering you this. You can go to Barbary, you can go to QLTS, you can go to College of Legal Practice. There are quite a few, okay? So these are getting non-human support. So you don't get some of the cheaper packages, you don't get live support, but what you do get is a calendar and a bit of a community with the other candidates, resources you can read, you can listen to, multiple choice questions you can interact with. And because these people have been doing it for a while and they're legit providers, the quality of the resource is actually good. If you want something of lesser intensity, so you just need banks of MCQs, then again, you can purchase those individually. You can either get the FLK MCQ books from Revise SQE. You can go to some online providers. Devil's Advocate is one that has MCQs that they offer. Sometimes you can purchase just the MCQ packages from the prep schools. You've got Law Drills, who are a friend of mine, who offer an AI tutor and MCQs. Some of the MCQs are written by the AI, some are written by me, some are written by other colleagues, some are put as packages for the as mock packages from the questions from the Revised SQE books, with permission, of course. So there are these also kind of lesser intensity support things, especially if you're after MCQs specifically. If you need more support, and if you need a tutor-assisted or tuition-based program, this is where it becomes way more difficult and properly expensive. But maybe you're better off putting that money in that effort and getting the support that you need, if that's the level of support that you're after, instead of chancing it by yourself, failing, and then having to pay the exam and redo it, and then pay for the prep school on top. If you need structured tuition, then you can select from one of the packages from the online schools that offer tuition online, together with the packages that I already described. If you can do this as a proper student and take a year off, or perhaps if your work allows you to do it, and attend physical classes, there are also options that you can take tuition in a traditional way, as if you were going to uni for a year. This is offered by more traditional providers, like the University of Law, BPP. There are a few that are actually offering your traditional sit-down taught experience in the same way that you would do in the olden days, the LPC, the Legal Practice course, which was a kind of physical course. You needed to sit in classes and stuff. So if you are in stage two out of your 3 stages of prep, right? Stage 1 was deciding why you want to become a solicitor. Second 2 is having decided, now you're trying for SQE1. Stage 3 is preparing for SQE2. So if you're on this second stage, you sort of do this triage and you try to figure out what is it that you need. If you need tuition, there are options. If you need online support, there are options. If you want to self-study with various levels of additional support, also, there are a lot of options. A key thing here is cost. This is going to be costly. Some things are cheaper. So the cheaper options are, what's stuff on my YouTube channel and get the revised SQE books, and then do some mock tests from law drills. This is like the cheapest possible package that you could put together. But cheap also means lower volume of support and lower intensity of support, and only choose this if you're already way ahead in your preparation and in your confidence over the substantive content. If you need more, then you need to budget for it. So how much more do you need? Think about this super carefully. How much more do you need? And can you afford the level of support that you need? If you cannot afford it, maybe you can delay when you're going to take this exam to give you more time to spread out the support that you need to achieve. Time is the next critical concept. Not only you have to deal with cost, but you have to accommodate this in terms of the rest of your lives. Most of the people going after the SQE are grown-ups, they're not kids. Grown-ups have a great deal of problems. Grown-ups have a job that they need to go to normally during the day. They probably got a family back home. They probably got other responsibilities. They're caring for somebody, or they need to support somebody else financially. Finding the time to do all this is usually the critical problem. Do you have the time to prepare? In order to help you with this, I put together a study planner that I update regularly. So the study planner is the sort of gift for the people who subscribe to my newsletter. But of course, I'm not restricting it. I'm giving it to everybody. So if you guys want to receive every Monday for free MCQs, tips, discount codes, and material to help you with your preparation for SQE1, send an email to newsletter. I'm trying to type this. As you know, I cannot talk and type at the same time. So send an email to newsletter@glimtis.co.uk. Put subscribe in the subject matter, and I will add you to the mailing list. So next Monday, you're going to have the email with all these resources. One of the resources is the study planner. It starts at kind of specific periods every year. So the current one started at the end of August, but you can still, we're not that far away, so you can still kind of pick it up and use it. It's a PDF. You print it out, stick it on the wall, and then it says, in order to cover the totality of the FLK, looking forward to the January 2026 exam, this is what you need to be studying every week to make sure that you cover all the topics. Yeah. So I made this because a lot of people were saying that they have a problem visualizing the FLK and breaking down the various topics and connecting how many topics do I need to cover, how much work is there to do, and then how much time can I devote to it. So what I'm trying to do through the study planner is to help you guys sort of visualize this and think, if this is the totality of the syllabus I'm meant to cover, and this is the amount of time I've got available, how can I break this down in a way that is manageable? But again, time is of the essence. If you are preparing for SQE1 in any capacity, to be honest, whether you're self-preparing or with a prep school, I don't think it can be done in anything less than 6 months. I think you're taking tremendous risks if you've got less, and I'm having this discussion with some people on Reddit at the moment. If you have less than 6 months available, it's going to be extremely risky, extremely risky. If you're planning a whole year ahead, it's a lot better. Because if you're planning a whole year ahead and you're thinking of self-studying, then you have the time to get access to all these resources and make a plan for you that actually allows you to traverse through the FLK and to kind of revise and to take all those mock MCQs and all of that stuff, and you can do this effectively. If you had more than a year, even better. If you are, say, studying for a law degree overseas and you want to prepare for the SQE on the side as a side project, that's even better. And I know some people that are doing precisely that. They're in the first or second year of the law degree in the foreign jurisdiction. They know they've got a couple more years to go, and they've already started preparing for SQE, so they get on top of the FLK. Money is a consideration. Time is a consideration. The third consideration for this second stage of prep is the motivation. And this is where, a lot of people get stuck, and I don't think we talk about this enough, okay? You need to keep yourselves motivated to do it. And this is not an easy task because this is an extraordinarily boring process. It is. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When you are going through your normal degree, if you've done a law degree, you find some subjects that genuinely interest you, some subjects less so. There are some teachers that are very inspiring and they're great. Some teachers are a bit boring. You got some colleagues in a class that you get along with. Sometimes, you don't have friends or the other students are not that interesting. But there's enough of a variety to keep you going. So you're thinking, this week I have to go to my business law class, which I love, and then I've got land law, which I hate, but the teacher is great, and then I have to do, something else like media law, which kind of so and so, and I don't get along with the kids in there. But there's enough of a variety to keep you motivated and to get you to turn up. The SQE is top to bottom horrifically boring. So there are subjects that you're gonna find easier, and some subjects connect with what you do in the day job, which kind of might trigger something, or you might be thinking, oh damn, I didn't know this law has changed, so I need to make a note about this because it's relevant to work. But it's not really a fun activity. And then getting yourself through MCQs again and again and again and again really is not fun at all. So finding the motivation and keeping yourself motivated to do it when it's boring and it is taking time away from other things that would be nicer and it costs a fortune is going to be extremely difficult. So the only way through this is to be prepared for it. So be prepared for this to be a boring, unpleasant, expensive, and time-consuming experience. And keep telling yourselves, I have a goal in mind. I'm doing this for a particular reason. I am aiming at something. And I don't know, print out what I said at the beginning, how much money you're going to make once you've got that practicing certificate. So, stick it on the wall and say, currently I'm making, say, 40, 50,000 pounds a year. My practicing certificate is my ticket to make 150 or 2,000. Print it, stick it on the wall, look at it every morning. And that's what's going to remind you. If the money is what you're after, this is what's going to remind you to kind of get yourself motivated. Or, if appearing in a courthouse one day and being a litigation expert is what you're after, then buy a poster of Suits and have kind of Harvey Specter staring at you every morning, and that's going to be your motivation. So we've gone through part 1 of your 3 stages of prep. Which was figuring out what's going on. Step 2, which was thinking about SQE1 and preparing for SQE1. Now, what is stage 3 of our 3 stages of prep? It is, how are you going to prepare for SQE2? So if you have succeeded in SQE1, like a lot of the people that I'm working with, they had the results for SQE1 like last week or so. A lot of them managed to pass and they're super happy. If you're one of the crowd that is watching this and unfortunately you did not manage to pass, it is not the end of the world. It happens to half the people who are taking this exam. Okay, so don't panic. And if you want to watch, I've got this great interview with Isam, former student of mine and friend of mine, who failed the first time he attempted SQE1, but then he passed the second time around, and he's just kind of telling us about his experience and how it all felt. So, assuming that you've passed SQE1 and you're now at this final stage, you need to think, how are you prepping effectively for SQE2? Here, guys, I've only got bad news for you. I do not think it is possible to self-prep for SQE2. SQE2 contains all the unfamiliar things, the things that we never talk about in an undergraduate law degree, all the actual lawyery things. How do you handle all the procedures? What do you actually say in a police station, in a court, to a client, to a partner? How do you interview people? How do you get the information? How do you record this information? How do you abide by the various regulatory standards and requirements? How do you fill in the paperwork? When do you fill in the paperwork? What do you put in that paperwork? So all of that stuff, in addition to the oral presentation elements and your capacity to sort of articulate all of these things in front of an audience, is what makes SQE2 extremely difficult. Yeah. I don't think there is adequate support outside prep schools to allow you to self-prepare for this. So I think you could get a tutor, fine, but you cannot really do it yourself because you won't even be able to figure out what's in it. The SRA is not doing us any favors here by not publishing past papers, but by not publishing sufficient examples of what the SQE2 exam is like to allow people to prepare. For that reason, I think it would be extremely risky to attempt to go it alone. Finding an adequate school to prepare you for SQE2 is also tricky because you need now the on-person support. So you should pick a program that has actual live interaction and elements of tuition. Different packages have got different price tags attached, so you need to again assess how much live support you think you're going to need. But even a minimal amount of live support is expensive. You cannot teach yourself to address SQE2 simply on the basis of documentation and books and all of that stuff. Unless you're already well embedded in a legal team and you've seen a lot of the actual practice of the law, even though you're not qualified, unless you're in that niche category, I don't think you're able to do it. So the cost immediately escalates. You need to select your support. You need to find the level of support that you need. You need to find whether you can afford it. And crucially, again, time becomes an issue. Do you have the time to attend these live sessions, be it physically or online? And on top of that, you need to keep the totality of the FLK in mind, because SQE2 is not simply performance, it implies knowledge of the FLK. So for that, you can return back to the preparation that you did for SQE1, and for that, you can revisit the material that we've got, including everything I've got on the channel to kind of bring you up to speed, revise the content of the FLK. But the crucial point, I mean, you've already passed SQE1, so the crucial point is not going to be so much getting on top of the FLK. The problem is going to be finding, paying for, and having the time for the support that you need to prepare you for SQE2. Across this entire, so these were the 3 stages of SQE prep. Why do you want to do this? How are you going to prep for SQE1? How are you going to prep for SQE2? There are some pervasive issues across the discussion and the presentation that we had today. Issues of funding. How do you find the money to support yourself through this? How do you find the money to pay for these exams? How do you find the time to pay for the prep that you need? The pervasive issue of time. How do you find the time to do this? How early do you start? If you're not starting very early, can you accelerate your process by putting more time available to your preparation? And finally, the pervasive issue of motivation. How do you keep yourself motivated through a process that is clunky, difficult, frustrating, and extremely boring? This isn't, I wanted to finish on a positive message. This doesn't sound positive at all. But I hope that you find some value in this sort of visualization of the process as 3 distinct stages of prep. Hopefully you can position yourselves which one of these three parts, 3 stages you're at. And now hopefully you've got some kind of structured understanding of the thing that's ahead of you. Now, I would love to hear from you guys what your experience has been. So feel free to put your views or to share where you're at in your preparation in the comments under this video. Next week, I'm going to return to my Wednesday session at 1 p.m. So we've got our coffee break when we can answer some more of the MCQs from the SRA. So I would like to thank you guys for turning up. It was awesome to have you here today. If you've joined in late, soon the replay is going to be available so you can watch it from the beginning. So thank you so much. Give us a thumbs up if you like this. Consider joining the channel as a paid member so I can drink my coffees, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.